Hey everyone, we have a good one today. We have a new product that just 2 weeks ago I was at Bergdorf Goodman and I said, I really hope that one day this person releases a foundation because I love so much else that's in their line. And the salesperson said, I have a feeling it's coming. And then the next day it was announced. And that's the Victoria Beckham foundation drops. And these are in conjunction with that name I can never pronounce, Augustinus Bader or Augustinus Bader. If you're not familiar with Mr. Bader, he has a skincare line that is sold at Sephora and other retailers. That's very pricey, but very sought after. So I'm very excited to share this. What I'm not excited about is that I ordered this the day it came out, and I'm just now getting it. It had a 2-day delay. It was supposed to arrive on Saturday, and then it was supposed to arrive yesterday, and now it arrived today. And I've noticed that, I'll tell you a story about that in a minute. That just seems to be a pattern. Back on the bed back here, I've got some new clothes I ordered while I was in New York 2 weeks ago from Zara, and they just got here. So if an entire face of Victoria Beckham, including the new foundation drops, sounds good to you, then I really would appreciate it if you would like and subscribe to my channel, shop my links, unsolicited advice on YouTube and Instagram. And so today, whenever possible, we're going to look at Victoria Beckham products. So I'm going to go back and grab a few, and I'll be right back. Okay, that took a minute because I've got quite a bit of Victoria Beckham. I believe I have all of her new eyeshadow quads. I have all of her eyeshadow single pots, and then I have a good amount of other products from her. So what I'm going to do first is one thing I don't have from her because I just can't justify necessarily the price, but maybe at the holidays when it goes on sale, is her primer. So I grabbed something that I thought would be similar. Her primer is a very skincare based primer, as is her whole complexion line. So I grabbed the Chantecaille rose tint, and I think that will be a very comparable product. It gives a beautiful glow. Sometimes I wear this by itself, especially the ones that are more tinted, and it's skincare enriched. So I think that this will be a nice base for what we're trying out today. Now, Victoria Beckham Beauty used to be kind of challenging to get. You had to go to her website or some British retailers, and then really the only place in the United States that had it for the longest time was Bergdorf Goodman. But in the last 6 months or so, since the acquisition of Bergdorf Goodman, but also, what'd she do there? But also with some other retailers jumping on board, you can now find it at Bergdorf, Nordstrom, maybe Saks. So yeah, it's more readily available. For the most part, Victoria Beckham Beauty is spectacular. You're looking at kind of, I would even say, luxury, but slightly better. Her complexion products are typically, like I said, very skincare infused. And then she just has a lot of really cool products that distinguish her on the market. I will say her complexion products, like the new complexion drops, as well as the primer I mentioned, and the concealer, are all a little more expensive than the rest of the stuff in her line. For instance, these are $100 or $105, and I have mine in the shade 4, and I believe you get an ounce of the product here. So that's more than, say, the $60. That's kind of the going rate, between $50 and $60 for skin tints. This isn't a skin tint. This offers up to medium coverage. So this is more of a foundation, but that is on the higher end but that's because it's packed with all those skincare ingredients. Otherwise, her products, you know, kind of range in the $30 to $70 range. But one thing to remember is that you can always get, if you get on her list, her Victoria Beckham list, not only will you get pre-sales, like I did on this foundation, although I don't know that it was that much faster, but you can also get discounts. She does sales quite a bit, including great ones around Black Friday. And she has some really good bundles on her website, like where she'll pair some of her iconic liners or some of her pots shadows in sets. So it's something to look at. And I'm sure after maybe 2 months, they'll consider this as part of a sale too, because I'm sure right now it's probably not eligible for the sale. I'm going to grab a Refer B04. And before I put on my foundation, I have the Victoria Beckham Baby Blade, and I have mine in the shade light brown. And so I'm just going to put on my brows real quick. This is a nice product. You know, do I think it's better than, say, like the Benefit one? No, it's on par. But again, when she's having a sale, it's really nice to be able to just get this when they're, you know, 20 or 30% off. She does 15 quite a bit. That seems to be a sweet spot. I'll put a link down below so you could shop my link. I'd really appreciate it. And it helps out, and it'll take you over to the Victoria Beckham page. And if you've never shopped from Victoria Beckham before, it will prompt you to put in your email so you can get a discount code so you can try it out. Okay, so let's get on with the Victoria Beckham foundation drops. It says to shake well. I have mine in the shade 4, which I watched Not Fit for Print Beauty yesterday, and she was really struggling with her shades. But the funny part is, when it was all done, it looked really good. But she kept cutting into her video and saying, I don't like the shade, I don't like the shade. But it looked real nice on her. 4 may be a little light for me, but this is apparently a very stretchy foundation. One thing I noticed that's a little odd is Victoria Beckham is like, well, she's not Louis Vuitton, but she's right down there as far as packaging. Her packaging is exquisite. It's all very heavy and very nice. This bronzer is like a brick. This is a heavy kind of plastic. And I was like, why wouldn't they do that in glass? Because they do a lot of her other products in glass. Even the concealer feels like it's in a glass container. It may be plastic, but it's very cold. And then I thought, oh, you got to be able to squeeze it. So this is where this probably comes into play. So I have heard that a little bit goes a long way. So let's do 1, 2, 3 drops. This might actually be a pretty good skin color for me. I think Rebecca might be a little bit darker than I am. There's 19 shades available in this, and it, like I said, is $105. Who is calling me? Good Lord. $105, and the shades are very flexible. On her website, she has an information so that you could find the perfect shade for you. Okay. So I'm going to grab my Refer B04. Actually, you know what? Victoria says on her website that what she does is just use her fingers. So I'm going to do fingers on one side and a brush on the other, and we'll see if it makes any difference. This is very light. The texture is really light, but it's got good coverage. This is more coverage right off the bat, I can tell you, than say like the Lisa Eldridge skin tint. Granted, this isn't a skin tint, but look at that. My redness is gone there. Huh. Okay, let's do the other side with a brush and see how it turns out. It's thicker than the Lisa Eldridge product, and I'm not saying that as a bad thing, because I think what's happening is it's not going into the brush as much. The Lisa Eldridge one, I really do use my fingers, and I like that product. But it's so thin and so watery that if you use a brush or a sponge, sometimes it'll eat it up. This looks really nice. The texture is really nice. It doesn't feel like there's anything. It feels like skincare's on my skin. I'm going to take a little bit more and try to get the areas that have just a little bit of redness or discoloration. Right here, and right here, and right here, and whatever's left. I think you could probably get a little bit more coverage maybe with your fingers, but I don't really see a problem with using this Refer brush, which is a BO4. It's dense, and so it's not really soaking up product. I'm happy with the amount of product I got out of that, and that was 3 drops and then 1 more drop just for areas that needed additional coverage. Yeah, I think that looks really nice. It's got a nice shine to it. It's kind of a subtle glow. It's not overwhelmingly shiny. Obviously, when I set it in a minute, I don't think even, the way this feels, I don't think you would have to set it. And given the reviews from people that I really trust and like Rebecca and Not Fit for Print Beauty, it lasted beautifully through the day. So I have no doubt it will. For the concealer, last year she released this concealer, and at the time, I think it was $68. And people were like, that's nuts for a concealer, when most of the time concealers are $38 to $52. And you didn't get a lot of product. That being said, I've used this quite a bit, and I have not made a dent in it. So it does go a good way, and you don't need a ton of it. It's lighter coverage, but it can be built up to medium. I have mine in the shade FL2, and it's got that clicky pen, just like kind of the YSL traditional touche clot. I like this. You know, I kind of go back and forth if I like these like clicky pens when they have this, like this, but I will say it's easy to use and you can get really precise application. I'm just gonna grab a brush. Victoria did come out with brushes, and from what I've seen, they look beautiful and they've got really good reviews. They're really expensive. That being said, getting a set or getting them through a discount, maybe around the holidays, would be a great idea. Someone, I think it's at Hannah Beauty or Han Beauty, really raves on how wonderful they are. They are beautiful. If you ever look at them, even the shape of the handle is really classy. Okay, I think that looks pretty nice. And this is a concealer that I've also found, kind of like the Westman Atelier, that I haven't necessarily needed to set. but I want to take the shine down just a little bit, so I am going to set it. And for that, I have the new Dior setting powder, because Victoria hasn't come out with a setting powder yet. Thank you, Victoria. You can save me a little bit of money for right now. Okay, so this is actually the one that's a little bit glowy, but I've noticed it's not that bad. It's not that glowy. It's the Luminescent Nude Radiant Filter. And I'm just going to sit under here. Yeah, that did set it nicely, but didn't make it look dry. Like I said, I don't think you would have to set this, but I just like to, especially because I have, you know, a few little pores, but it's not exaggerating them. It's not making them look big or anything like that. That looks really nice. That's a good foundation. I can just tell you that right off the bat. You know how you can just tell sometimes you put it on and you're like, whoa. That, I believe, is what has happened here. Okay, so we've got that on. We've got the brows done. The next thing I'd like to do is contour. Now, Victoria Beckham has what she calls a contour stylus, which is about 40 bucks. You get way less product than you do in, say, my beloved Westman Atelier or in the Dior contour sticks. But one thing that these are really good at is getting more detailed work. So I'm going to grab, I've got two shades here. I've got a lighter and a darker. You know, it's still kind of summer, so let's go with the darker. Maybe it'll be a little too dark, but whatever. This is in the shade Marble. And you can get really precise with this. I do not use these to contour much. I'll do the nose, a little bit of the area, but they're pricey for the amount of product you get. But it does blend really beautifully. It blends as well as like the Westman Atelier. The thing is that, you know, you're just getting less product. So you have to kind of be careful. One area where it does have it just beat, though, is the nose, because you can really get in there. And you can even do the lips, which isn't going to make a whole lot of difference right now because I have a beard, but you can see that you can get detailed fine work there. And I could do under the jaw and all that too if I didn't have a beard. So let's go in, and you see this blends really beautifully and really easy. Like I said, I think it blends just as well as the Westman Atelier. Oftentimes, and maybe it's because the first time I saw Victoria Beckham at Bergdorf Goodman, she shares a gondola with Westman Atelier, and I often find their products, as well as Lisa Eldridge to some extent, to be quite similar, not necessarily in quality or product offering. I mean, they're all excellent products, but just in kind of the aesthetic, the goal they're trying to achieve, I think that those three brands, they're in the same chapter of the book. Okay, so now we come to the bronzer. And Victoria Beckham has a product that is really cool. It's called the Bronzing Brick. And it is a brick. This is heavy. But this is what I was talking about with the packaging. It's really beautiful. It's right below like Louis Vuitton. I mean, there's a sticker here. We know Louis Vuitton doesn't have no stickers. But it's really beautiful. That's what surprised me a little bit at first about this. But it makes sense when you figure out you've got to somehow get that product out. So I have mine in the shade 2, and the way these are built is there's a shade over here that's more for contour and a shade that's more for bronzing. Obviously, a lot of people are just going to blend the two together and use that. And so I think that's what I'm going to do today on a Refer 24. These are pigmented, and it is matte, but it's not a dry looking matte. and it's pretty easy to buff in. As far as matte bronzers, you know, I like the Gucci bronzer a lot. But as far as matte bronzers are concerned, this is right up there. It may be the best matte bronzer on the market. You can see though, it has pigment. I think it looks really nice though. And God knows, for Victoria Beckham, for a lot of her products, you know, you don't get a ton of product, but on this bronzing brick, you get a ton, and this thing's refillable. This is 96 grams of product, so it's a good value. I believe the refill just kind of comes in a clamshell, so you would have to get some sort of case. Okay, so I was going to tell you about the shipping thing. So I ordered, please don't kill me, I know this has been controversial of late, but I ordered some more products from Louis Vuitton, refills only, and I paid for expedited shipping because I wanted to, you know, do a video and show y'all more of the brand. Well, it said it'll arrive tomorrow. Great. $30. It'll arrive tomorrow. Well, today I wake up, it hasn't shipped. This afternoon, it hasn't shipped. So I get on the little chat bot with Louis Vuitton, and actually it was 2 orders because they were split. Like some of the items I wanted came back into stock yesterday morning, and then a few more came in yesterday afternoon. So I get on the chat with them, and they said, okay, that makes sense. We're sorry. We don't know why that hasn't shipped yet. We've been backed up. Give us 72 hours to investigate the matter. And I was like, if you have 72 hours to investigate the matter, plus the day it's already not here, why am I paying $35 a package to get it overnighted? And they were like, can you clarify what that means? I'm not getting it. And I said, well, if I'm paying $70 in overnight shipping fees, and I'm not even going to get an answer till this investigation goes through, why am I paying that? And to their credit, they removed it. They said, if we can't figure this out today and get that box overnighted to you tomorrow, we'll remove the charges for the expedited shipping. But it's just another example right now of where all of these brands are really struggling to get their product out in a reasonable amount of time. I think I got a little too much bronzer on my nose. I'm going to grab my little pen, and I'm not really going to put any additional, but I'm going to see what's left on there. And I don't want it to go away, so what I'm going to do is just kind of press it in. Victoria uses her fingers a lot. Okay, that lightened up a little bit there. Okay, so next, where do we want to go? Well, we have a base, so let's go ahead and look at eyeshadows. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Let's put a balm down. So I have the Victoria Beckham Balm, Posh Balm, and this was a limited edition color that came out earlier this year, and it is called, get your glasses, Wayne, Cornell. It came out with the brown collection that came out earlier this spring. My lips are pretty dry, so what I'm going to do is just put a thin layer on it so that by the time we put another treatment on later, it won't be so bad. This was in the, what was the name of that collection? It had an eyeliner and this, and they were both like a sienna brown kind of color, terracotta brown. So yeah, that's that. So, okay, let's look at eyes. I think Victoria Beckham does really well with eye products. She used to have a different kind of brick, bronze eyeshadow brick that people didn't necessarily like that much. They didn't have a ton of pigment. She maybe went the opposite direction now, where the bricks have a shit ton of pigment. You have to be very careful with them. They have a lot of pigment right off the bat. You're always going to get kind of a smoky eye with them unless you're extremely careful. She's come out with 4 color stories and then a limited edition color story in kind of a red. Her signature is Victoria, and you see it's a smaller version kind of the bronzing brick, and these are also refillable. This is the shade Victoria, so I think that that's what I'm going to use today, at least on one eye, and then I'm going to show you her other eyeshadow offering on the other eye. So let me grab a Refer brush, and I want something very loose because these have a lot of pigment. I'm going to grab a 14, and let's bring you in a little closer, Clarice. Let's see. Oh, you don't want to be that close to me, do you? Maybe. Okay, I didn't put anything on my eyelids as far as primer. She doesn't have an eyeshadow primer, so I would use a Rare Beauty or an About Face, or Pat McGrath, something like that. Maybe not Pat McGrath, because that one tends to be dramatic on its own, and this doesn't need that. So I'm going to grab this lightest color here, and you see there's a lot of color. These are powdery, but extremely pigmented. Not a ton of fallout either. Now again, this quad is called Victoria. And this is a pretty color. It's not too deep. I'm just going to put that on the crease here. And a little bit under. Yep. Okay. So over here we have 2 options. This one's kind of a burgundy color, and then we have a darker gray. I'm going to go in with this burgundy just a little bit. And just deepen up that corner a little bit. It's a pretty color. It reads a little more red in the pan than it does. It's a little more muted on the actual eye, which I like. But see how much pigment is on there? And this is a fluffy brush. Back to not fit for print. She's always talking about how these are not for the lighthearted or for those with a heavy hand because they go deep very fast. Okay, I'm going to grab just a little bit of this dark gray brown color and put it just along the lash line here. Very little fallout, if any. Now listen, if you wanted to take this crazy, you easily could with like the Pat McGrath Intensify wand. But I'm just going to take this metallic here, which is actually very similar. Well, I'll show you the difference in a minute. This is very similar to one of her pots. The pots are just way even more pigmented, more glittery. So I'm going to grab this color. And it's a metallic kind of gunmetal with red in it. Really interesting color. But you can see right here, this is not for, you know, the lighthearted, fresh spring look. I mean, you're going to get something serious. Especially when you consider that that beige that we started with is the only lighter, if you will, color in here, and it's got a good amount of pigment. So that is a beautiful color. I really like it. I'm going to go back in and grab a little bit of that beige color just to work the edge out a little bit. I think I accidentally grabbed a little bit of that brown over there, or that gray. So I'm going to grab an empty brush and just clean that up a little bit. You know, if you ever do that, this is the easiest way, is to just grab a dry brush. You can also, if you have a powder foundation, or you have a little bit of foundation left on your brush that you put your makeup on with, you can also remove it that way. Okay, I'm going to go back in now with this new brush with this tan color. Yeah, that's much better. Yeah, I grazed that gray when I was putting this on, and that went out a little too far for me. Okay, there isn't a kind of, in this particular one, inner corner color, so I'm just going to grab a little bit of this beige. Normally I would reach out to one of her singles, which I'll show you in a second, and put that on the inner corner. It works. It's just normally I like a little bit more lightness, but you can see this is a really cool look. Now, on the other eye, what I'm going to do is showcase her EyeLusters, which Victoria's EyeLusters and Victoria's eyeliners are pretty much my two favorite products she has, although this foundation might be up there. Her EyeLusters are like very similar, like a Pat McGrath special shade, but they come in these beautiful glass jars. You want to keep airtight. They have a stopper, and she's got a variety of colors. She's come out with some that have been discontinued. I have all of them, and I think she's had 10. But maybe for the holiday she'll come out with a new one. She came out with a green last year that was extremely popular. As far as her liners, she has the best liners on the market. And I have all of them. She has come out with a ton of them over the years, different colors and styles, different finishes. But for this one, let's grab, what would be a good color just to show you. I could go with a dark burgundy and pick up that red that's in the corner there. And maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe if I'm not dropping all of these, that would be nice. The little lids are slippery little fuckers. I don't know that I want to go super deep. You know what? Fuck it. Let's go with the burgundy. I think it's really pretty. It's the Bordeaux color. And she actually has a Bordeaux palette, if you really like the color Bordeaux, that you could utilize. But I'm just going to grab it. This is the liner in Bordeaux, just to show you how they look. Let me grab that road cap, because the last thing I want at $35 or whatever is these drying up. So the reason that these are so special is they're very creamy and so easy to apply. They have a felt tip on one end that's actually really useful for blending out. They're soft enough to where you could use them as kind of a shadow, but once they set, they set. So I'm going to go in with this burgundy color and just kind of, maybe I can demonstrate how easy and pigmented these are. You could get really graphic with these. Well, that doesn't sound right. I shouldn't say that. That sounds like pornography or something. But I sometimes will just put them down, blend it out a little, put another line over it, and keep it really simple. And their color, their pigments are so interesting, and some of their colors are so interesting that it just makes for a really cool graphic look. So I'm going to blend this in. You know, I cleaned this up a little bit, and this would be a cool look by itself. I'm going to go ahead and do my waterline, and I'm going to do the red on both because the base of that gray color is red. So I think this will really bring these to life. She has so many interesting colors, and she comes out with new ones quite often. Some of my favorite ones, unfortunately, were limited edition, or they haven't been out in a while. Like this Seafoam is probably my favorite. I really like this Terracotta. That's what I was talking about earlier. But she's also come out with like grass green, electric blueberry, fig, and then of course she has more standard colors too. Different finishes. Some are metallic, some are more, matte. And then she also has her eye brightener, which this is actually a cool product if you want. My best friend uses this every day. I don't use it every day, but you can put it in your waterline. It makes it really bright. You can do inner corner with it. You can do under the brow. And this is also a product that she has that I like a good deal. Okay, so these little, let's see. No, I don't want to do that. Now I'll bring you back out a little bit. These little pots are brilliant, and I'm going to show you the color Mink, which is sort of what this other one was based off of, but these just have so much more shine and pigment to them. They come in a little pot container with a little stopper, and then this is the product, but let me see if I can show you here. It's just very reflective. This is a little bit more muted compared to these. These are extremely reflective. So I pulled 3 of them today to show you, because what I tend to do sometimes is do what I did with the liner here, throw a little bronzer in the crease and then put 1 or 2 of these on, and you have a really nice look. She had a blonde one that I have that was really great for inner corner, but for some reason she doesn't have that one anymore. But I pulled a few today to show you. This one's called Chiffon, and I have swatched all of these on my Instagram, so if you ever want to see how they look, go to Instagram. But this one is a very light gold color, and this is, probably what she's using for inner corner now that other blonde color has been discontinued. And then I pulled the color Tea Rose just so you could see that. The one thing with these, as well as, Pat McGrath or anybody else who does like those pot shadows, is you want to make sure that you are sealing them really well when you're done. But I've had some of these for 3 years and they're perfectly fine. This is Tea Rose, which is a beautiful pinky rose color. Really beautiful. It's got, you can't maybe see this on camera, but it's got some like purple, pink sparkles and a little bit of a copper undertone. It really comes across in the light. So you can see these have so much reflectivity. So what I'll do on this eye is maybe we'll use that one so you can just see a different look. I could use the Mink and you could see the difference between the two, but I think I'll just use this Tea Rose one. So what I'm going to do is wet my brush, because these, with it being in a pot, you do want to control the product a little bit more. Yeah, they're pretty well pressed in here. If they ever get hard pressed for you, you can take like a metal, well, I use like a drink stirrer, or you could use like a toothpick, something like that, break them up and then press them as hard as you can back in there and put the cap back on, and that will loosen them a little. So I could apply this all over the lid and you would get this kind of really soft but beautiful metallic look. What I'm going to do though is do it with my finger so you can get the full effect. And again, use a Pat McGrath Intensify wand and you would really get some super molten shine. Now, I do feel a little bit of fallout with these. I normally, if I use the pots, will do my makeup, my base after that, but it's okay. There wasn't a ton, but see how metallic and shiny that is? I think that looks really beautiful. I mean, that's crazy. That's Pat McGrath Special Shade right there. So I'm going to put the lid back on really tight and go in now with that other shade, which was Chiffon, and just grab a little bit from my inner corner. And you know what? I didn't have an inner corner over here. This will look beautiful over there too. Yep, makes all the difference because it gives just a little bit of light there. Now on this one over here, I didn't do anything on the lower lash line because I put that liner down. But what I will do is sort of smoke out that liner just a little bit on the bottom. So let me grab the little brush that comes with it and just smoke that out a little bit. I'm pretty happy with this as it is. But if you wanted even more color, you could just run a little bit of the bronzer under it. It would be perfectly fine. So that's two different eye looks featuring both of her eyeshadow products and then featuring her liners, which I think are just brilliant. Hey guys, sorry, I wanted to talk about something that I totally forgot. When I was putting my Victoria Beckham away, I started to realize I forgot to tell you about a product I really like. And it's a third eyeshadow product, and it's her sticks. I really like them. They come in interesting colors like cornflower blue, mustard yellow, and bottle green, which you can see here. They're just like her Satin Kajal liners. They go on really smooth, really beautiful, concentrated, and you can just take a brush and fan out the edges and they look really great. One and dones. So check these out. Okay, now you can go back to the video. Bye. So what I'm going to do now is just old Rephr curler. I don't believe, I think I might have had a sample, but to go to my sample bin is a process. So I don't believe I have a full size of the Victoria Beckham mascara. I know she came out with a burgundy earlier this year that looked really nice, and that would go great with these, but I don't think I have it. So I'm just going to grab Pat McGrath, the good old-fashioned perfect Dark Star, which is such a nice mascara still. We should be getting the Pat McGrath holiday collection soon, and a birdie has told me that it is really beautiful this year. Now, if they lied to me, she did so good last year in giving us the Italian formula, her Quint formula, that she best not convert back to that American formula that people don't like as well. Okay, beautiful. Okay, so let's see, where are we at? Well, we're at blush, and she's got a couple of options for blush. She has a new liquid blush product. In fact, let me grab that for you. Weighing in, here we are. This is the new Victoria Beckham. These are the Water Fresh Tint blushes, and I have mine in the shade Flushed, and they're an interesting product. I find the best way to do these, for me, is to put them on one of these trays, because if I put them on the back of my hand, they do stain a little. So it's just a plunger and you just grab it and see how there's a product in there. Some people could do this directly on their face. I would be a little afraid of that. And when I do it on my hand, if you don't move super quick, it will leave a little bit of a stain on your hand. So I'm just going to grab this and I'm going to go back to my foundation brush. See how runny it is? It's a very watery, lightweight product. And just place it on there. It really is just like a tint, and it washes, it goes right in. It doesn't, it's very natural. It's just a little bit fussy, but I find it to be so much more natural looking than some of the others. A little bit like the Glow Recipe one, but even more kind of natural looking. Certainly compared to like other liquid blushes, you know, it's more muted. I'm just showing you that because I'm actually going to show you my favorite blush product from her, which is her sticks. I think Victoria Beckham blush sticks are my favorite of stick formulas. I have 3 colors here. I have Mini Skirt, Playground, and Knickers. Knickers. And I think they're just the easiest to blend out. They're beautiful. They're not particularly large. You don't get a ton of product, but they stretch and they're really easy to work with, so you don't need as much. So this is the color Knickers. I hate that word. Which is a soft peach color. And then we have the color Mini Skirt. And I believe Mini Skirt and Playground are almost always sold out. So when you see them, if you like them, get them. This is a rusty kind of color. Real beautiful. And then finally, there's Playground, which is a terracotta. She has 3 others, but the other 3 are more in the pink, red, berry family, and I have a lot of blushes in those colors. So I think the best one today would be Mini Skirt. So what I'm going to do is just put some Mini Skirt on my hand, because this is how I do this, and make like a little pool, and that's really all you need. You know, maybe 1.5 inch square, and go in with your brush and pick some of it up and work it into the bristle, and then pat it on. And I think these are my favorite blush stick products. I know that people like the Dior ones that came out earlier this year. I don't see the Pat McGrath ones are nice, but there's just something about these. And at first I didn't really want them because it didn't seem like you got a lot of product. And that tends to be a pattern with Victoria, that her products are a little smaller than others, so you think that you're not getting a lot, but in truth, you're not using as much. And she goes for a lighter look. So I way over applied these to give you just an idea of how they look. And of course I have 2 on, but at least you can get an idea of how these look. I'm going to take a dry brush, because I just cleaned that out, and just go over the edges a little bit and soften it up. You always could take a finishing powder from like Hourglass, or take extra foundation if you felt like you had overdone it. But this is just to give you a nice demonstration, and they have a nice shine to them. And remember, I had put a little powder there, and they work really great on them, and they're not sticky. So I think they're excellent. The next product, of course, is the highlighter, and I think she's got an option or 2. Her Holy Grail, a lot of people call it their Holy Grail highlighter, is these sticks. And this is a really cool product. She has it in 2 colors, more of a bronzy gold for darker skin tones, and then this one, which is in pearl. And it's just a really beautiful highlighter that I can even just, like you just saw, put on directly. And it's got that glassy shine, but it doesn't have any real visible sparkles. It's really nice. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like the RMS luminizers. Just a really cool product, but look at that. Look at that shine you can get. Very glassy, and that I like. Okay, so now we're over to lips because she hasn't, maybe she has a setting spray. I don't know. But it's fine by me. I'm not going to go anywhere, so I don't really need to set this. But what I will do is lips. And so I have a couple of lip products from her. I have, like I showed you earlier, the balm, and I have 2 colors. I have the one that goes with the terracotta, and then I have one called Cassis, which is a popular kind of purple color. The one thing about these to be careful with is these are not like the YSL. When you click these up, you can't click them back down, so you only want to click up as much as you need. The other product that she has, I swear I brought it out. Am I losing my mind? I might be. Is she has lipsticks and stains, and I really like her stain. I think it's a nice product. But for this look today, I'm just going to go in with one of the balms, but I'm going to start with her lip liners, and her lip liners are really excellent. If you haven't noticed, there's not a product on here where I'm like, that's a dud. That's just not Victoria Beckham Beauty. So this is in the shade 2. Which they say is Victoria's shade. They show you bestsellers and ones they deem as Victoria shades on the website. The thing about this too is I'm not even like, before her beauty, I wasn't a huge like Victoria Beckham fan. I like her husband. I like her son. But, you know, I liked her. I just wasn't a huge fan. Huge fan of her beauty line. So now I'm going to go in with that color Cassis. And this is a deep kind of berry color. And I think it'll look nice with this deeper, more, you know, dark look. They're not heavily pigmented. But they do have a little bit of color to them. And you can see that just deepened it up a little bit. So, like I said, I don't think there's a setting spray, and we don't have a powder yet. So the final category that I think she's kind of mastered, and I don't really talk about it a lot on this channel, but I have a fragrance addiction, and she has come out with 4 fragrances. She has a neroli. She has one called like Sweet something, SUITE, like a room. They're supposed to invoke memories of places she's been. My favorite by far, and one of my all-time favorite fragrances, is her newest one. I picked it up on the last trip to New York. I smelled it on like day 1, and then I could not smell it. So I finally had to pick it up. And this is in, what does she call this one? 2150. And this is the woman at Bergdorf described it to me as a gourmand for people who don't like gourmands. So it's got vanilla, it's got a little bit of warmth, a little tiny bit of like tropicalness, but it smells like it would be great for fall. just really outstanding product. I think you would really like it, even if you don't like vanilla, which I'm not a huge vanilla person. Even if you don't like gourmand. I have trouble with gourmand because sometimes they're too sweet or they get kind of gnawing on me. This one doesn't. It's just really beautiful. And it also, as all of her fragrances do, there is a hand cream as well. The hand cream is very nice. I use it because it is kind of expensive. I'm not going to use it for my hands. I think it's like $40, but there are bundles, of course. But I use it as kind of a primer for the perfume. So I'll put it down first, a thin layer, put a little here, put a little here, and then put the perfume on top. And it kind of doubles up the fragrance. Really fine atomizer. It smells so good. I don't know what's in it. I think you would really, really like it, even if you're not a vanilla person, or if you're somebody who really likes gourmands. I think you would even like it too, because it's sweet, but it's in kind of a smoky, sultry way. I don't know how to describe it more than to say I think you'd really like it, and the packaging, as all Victoria Beckham is, top notch. So there we go. We have a face of Victoria Beckham Beauty, a brand I love and adore. I'm going to say that I think these are excellent. The new foundation drops by Victoria Beckham and Augustinus Bader Skincare. They complement really well with the matching concealer. I'm sure they do with the primer as well. But this looks really beautiful. It's got a glow on it. It's not crazy glowy. I could powder it if it was just a little bit too much. But I think it looks really great. You got two eyes using both of her products for eyes as well as her liners. Lip, you've seen the contour. I think hopefully you've got a good idea of what the Victoria Beckham brand offers now that it's become more readily available. So if you like this content, I really would appreciate it if you would subscribe. People watch the videos, but they don't subscribe, and that really helps me. And then also consider, liking the video and shopping my links. It costs you nothing, but it really helps my little channel. Again, I thank you for joining me today, and I will have, as you know, more products as the holidays roll in coming down the pike, if and when they ever get here with the shitty shipping that we have going on right now. Thanks for joining me.